All right, we are joined here today by Mike Larson of Mike's Critters. Mike, how you doing today?
Not bad. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Thanks for being on. We previously spoke with the Reptile Rescue Society that's in White Rock and learned a lot about the animals there and the importance of rescuing exotic animals. And there's always a story behind the owners of these institutions. How did you get into what you do?
Well, I've always been interested in animals since I was like a little kid, like
Mhm.
literally 2 years old.
Mhm.
And I can admit, for several years after high school, I kind of spun my wheels, not doing anything productive, enjoying life,
Right.
and there's bills that come up. So I kind of was looking at something that I wanted to do because if you don't like what you do, kind of hard to do it.
Right.
And I heard about a program at BCIT Entrepreneurial School. And you don't just pay money and you're in the class, they actually interview you. And for my semester, 16 spots, they interviewed 160 people. And after every interview, they knocked 50% of the people out. So I was one of the last people standing. And I think it was very safe to say I was the oddest business to go through that thing. For our wrap up, when we get our marks and do our presentation, there was no one in past groups because they have the teachers and then they bring somebody back in your field. There was no one in my field that they could come back to. So the closest person that they got was someone I think that cuts lawns for a living.
So tell us a little bit about your business model.
Well, I want to say it's hands-on educational fun done safely with critters.
Mhm.
Critters are always the priority, and not to put anyone down, but people come after the critters because
Right.
they are more vulnerable. But I think it's really important that people know what they're getting into before they get into it. You impulse buy something alive, there's a really good chance it's not going to stay that way.
Right.
So you do your due diligence. You know, someone wants to buy a car. I hope people aren't buying the car because it's blue and it's got 4 doors.
Right.
Should be a bit more to your research. And ideally, it'd be kind of nice to hear that there's no shelters or rescues out there, period, because people are doing their due diligence.
Right. Taking care of the animals. So the primary focus is on education in terms of what it takes, what it requires to own an exotic pet
If
or
that
animal.
comes up, when I'm
Yeah.
in a school and things like that, I got to fit into the curriculum. So it's like classification, defenses, adaptations, feeding. But you know, the right questions come up with the right group and you can work everything in there.
So what types of critters do you have there?
A little bit of everything. There, I have birds like parrots. There's mammals, reptiles. There used to be insects, arachnids, amphibians, and then the odd like crustacean, like a hermit crab and things
Mm.
like that. I don't want to say your average pet store stuff,
Right.
but kind of.
What's the most exotic animal that you have?
Well, I like to always think I'm the most exotic
Ah.
animal, also the highest maintenance, and you know the worst one to deal with. But that's hard to say. I do have things on the CITES list, which is the endangered species list, but everything to my knowledge I have is captive born, which I think is extremely important. Wild caught animal is horrible for a whole bunch of obvious reasons, but it's not going to be tame. It's not going to necessarily want to be around you. And it could come in with parasites and things like that that could have effects on lots of different things.
Is there any exotic animals, lizards or anything like that that can actually be domesticated?
Oh yeah, the longer things have been in captivity and bred, the more domesticated they get.
So,
Corn, leopard geckos, some of the more common pet store animals, rabbits, guinea
right.
pigs. They were all wild animals at one point.
Yeah, because
Cats and dogs too, right?
I was reading this book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, and it's talking about the the domesticability I don't know if that's how you say the word, of animals, and how certain animals you can only tame. Like you can tame an elephant, but you can't domesticate an
No.
elephant.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Ugh. Tame and domesticate. Well, captive born, it's sort of domesticated, I guess.
Right.
And there's certain things that don't make a good pet for anybody for any reason, and an elephant would be on that list.
Yes.
Pretty hard to have a room in your house big enough, and then you got to think of the food supply and things like that.
Right. So for your animals, other than yourself, of course, which one takes the most maintenance, requires the most maintenance?
One thing I tried to have done is get lower maintenance animals.
Mhm.
And one thing I'm going to say, it might be a little bit generalized, is humidity for animals.
Right.
A lot of people might not think about that. And when you're thinking about that right now, when do you think humidity is more important or harder to control? Like what season?
In the winter?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know why? Because your furnace is running. So
Yes.
it's all dry, hot air blowing.
Right.
So that sucks more humidity, in my opinion, out of the air, out of a cage, than in the summer where it's just warm. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So certain things like that, you have to be spraying and adding humidity a lot more. But I'm
Right.
going to say chameleons might be one of the harder pets that I've ever had. I've done really well with them. But the humidity that they need and the amount of calcium that they need. And you can calcify food and vitaminize stuff by gut loading, which is feeding your feeder insects healthy food.
Right.
They're healthy on the inside already, but then I call it shake and bake, where when you're getting bugs, you put them in a container with the right vitamins and minerals. You pour it in there and you dump the bugs in, you shake it up, then it's on the outside. And
Right.
that might be really easy to add calcium, but calcium can't be absorbed into your body without another vitamin, which is D3, which means you have to supply D3 on top of that. You can do that with a vitamin, another like vitamin mix, but you need the right lights. Because light bulbs for reptiles, and the reptile industry has changed lots over the decades I've been involved. It was barbaric almost in like the 80s, but now there's lots of science behind it. So there's a lot of really, really good stuff out there for them. But a light bulb that gives off nutrients, vitamins and minerals wears out.
Yes.
Some people might just keep using that same bulb for a year. You're not giving them anything after a few months.
So how long do these bulbs last for?
Depends on the bulb. I
Right.
kind of try to change mine every 3 or 4 months, which is earlier than you need, because I'd rather have them full than half, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been pretty lucky. I don't know if you know of a company called Hagen. It's the world's largest animal supply company. And they have mammal supplies, bird supplies, reptiles, dogs, cats, things like that. And years ago, one of their sales reps heard about me, and he contacted me, and I've been sponsored by Hagen now for, I think, like 15 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of nice. It helps because then I can get top quality products and food, which doesn't affect my budget for feeding these things, because it's not expensive, or it's not cheap to have one pet. When you have multiple, they eat more than I do.
How many pets do you have in total?
I'm going to say maybe about 100.
Whoa. Where do you keep all these animals?
Well, they're all in different rooms for temperature and humidity.
Yes. Yeah.
And snakes aren't in my mammal room for obvious reasons.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's because it's actually not obvious to me, but is that because the animals and the snakes that they could go at it with each other?
Sense each other.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is half your critters to be on food mode all the time.
Right.
And then the other half be on alert mode all the time. So things are spread out throughout the house, and the critters let me have 3 rooms in my house.
So they're all in your home?
Almost all. I do have a couple that live somewhere else just due to bylaws.
Oh,
and I have to get those on a day that I go out, for work.
right. Right.
Yeah, you got to follow the rules. You're a public figure. If you're breaking the rules, you're kind of teaching everyone else.
Yeah.
Well, you can too. Kind of like wearing a mask in a mall, right?
Right. Yeah. You're talking about the COVID bylaw rules and stuff.
No, no. I'm just talking like bylaws for animals. You
Which
know,
which
the crazy
animals?
cat lady can't have 100 cats, right?
Again, now that's for obvious reasons. That's a serious health infraction. What are the animals that have to be in the separate building due to bylaws?
Well, separate municipality. My tarantulas.
Oh, why?
Yeah, where I
What?
live, you're not allowed to have tarantulas.
Okay.
And I know where I grew up in South Delta, you're not allowed to have more than 6 animals in your house. So when I was doing my research for my schooling at BCIT, the entrepreneurial school, I had to contact every municipality, do a graph to see where I could move. So I would have loved to have ran this business out of where I grew up because that's, familiar territory. And if you had 7 goldfish in your tank, you're breaking a bylaw.
That's
Absolutely ridiculous.
yeah. That is yeah. Yeah.
Most bylaws, if you went through where you live, the bylaws in your municipality, most of them are totally out of date and
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all it
Because
takes one person to go to city council to implement a bylaw because people don't get notified. And who's going to spend every week going to city council in case something comes up that might affect them? So it's pretty easy, I think, at times for some people to get something agenda-wise pushed through.
right. Right.
Yeah,
What? Yeah. What are they trying to get out of this in being so vague in the only 6 pets bylaw? Is that still a thing in Delta?
I believe so.
Wow.
Some municipalities, you can't have a snake over a certain foot.
Hmm.
And I can understand that. The average pet owner doesn't need a 30-foot snake. He could have some problems.
Yeah. Yes. What?
Yeah.
So other than education, it sounds like what? Tell us a little bit about the education because it's not just schools. It also sounds like political education, like changing these bylaws and making things make more.
Well, I'm definitely part of a couple of groups that have banded together to, raise awareness,
Hmm.
to, stop certain things and promote other things, I guess. I'm involved with PJAC, which is nationwide. It's the Canada Industry Joint Advisory Council. And they're definitely someone that's able to help get some laws pushed through or to fight some laws.
Right.
Because a few years ago, example, some groups were trying to shut down people owning rabbits.
And why is that?
Well, I think part of it is warranted because there's a lot of people that they get an animal, they're bored with it, it's grown up, it's not a baby, it's not as cute, and they dump it in the park.
Oh,
You can
right.
go to certain places around and there's lots of rabbits running around. Those were all somebody's ex-pets. And that's a horrible situation.
Yeah, because like you're saying, those aren't wild rabbits. They don't
No,
have the skills to be in the
no.
wild.
They don't have they're lacking part of their natural instincts about fleeing when a predator comes by.
Mm,
They're used to eating out of a bowl.
yeah, and being
Not
pet by humans and stuff.
exactly.
Yeah. So what is it that changes in a domesticated animal? Like, is it their brain chemistry, or why is it that why is it that an animal can't be wild again? What's happening there?
Well, I don't want to say that's the case because there's things that have been reintroduced to the wild,
Sure.
and that's really important with endangered animals, breeding programs in zoos or even in the public, hobbyists breeding certain things to re-release. The only issue with that is you have to protect the land first, because if there's no land to release them, you're just killing that animal in the long run.
Right.
There's got to be trees and everything has to be protected right from the ground up.
Right. So going back to the laws, what's the number one thing you'd like to change in terms of bylaws and
Probably maybe And there's probably, could be go on for hours, and I'm going to forget a couple things, I'm sure, but the people making these laws need to be more aware of common sense and reality.
Mm,
And I think it's kind of safe to say that a lot of politicians lack that.
right. Yeah.
And maybe more hobbyists, breeders, and other industries involved in this should be able to speak a little bit more freely about certain things, because the hobbyist or the breeder definitely knows a lot more about a lot of these things than your average council person that has zero clue about
Yeah.
anything
Yes.
revolving around. So more awareness, common sense, but we know you can't teach that.
Is there a ministry for, like, I know there's a ministry of education, there's a ministry of
Fisheries and
health.
wildlife, I guess, are in
Oh, okay. So it's all under
Ministry of
that.
Environment, maybe.
Yeah. Fisheries
Yeah,
and that's such a nebulous thing, right? Like that's so vast. So would you,
exactly. And then the
yeah,
resources, when all the other aspects that they have to
money there.
watch, they don't have enough time to do things properly. So maybe some things get pushed through quickly just because they don't have the time to properly research. If that makes sense.
Right. Now, I know you're obviously an ethical person and these animals mean a lot to you, their well-being.
Well, they
But
eat first,
yes, yeah, they eat first.
like your daughter does, right?
Yes, that is very true. But who oversees you to make sure that you're being ethical? If, say, there are people who are not, who sort of oversees the whole thing?
Uh, no one, because I like to think I'm playing everything by the rules.
Yeah.
And I know I call people out when I see specific things. So if
Mm,
I'm doing the wrong thing, I kind of, I guess, tit for tat, come
right.
back, right? But I think I'm very aware of that. And when I first started this, it was an overblown hobby that was eating me out of house and home. So
Yes.
I've kind of toned what I've had down. And over the years, when things do slowly, end up passing away and that type of thing, if it's not something that's more in the trade, I kind of haven't tried to get it again.
Okay. I see what you're
Sticking,
saying.
I don't want to say the basics, but kind of.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're going more towards the rescue bit. So you're not buying animals, but you're providing a
Oh
home
no,
for
I
them.
still buy some to fill in the gaps, but I'm going to
Right.
say right now, 50% of what I have, maybe a little more, has been rescued.
Mm,
The
okay.
odd, I don't breed a lot of things
Right.
for a couple of reasons, because there's already people out there, and I'd hate to kind of take away a home from a critter that's already sitting in line looking for one. So I do try to push people into adopting or going to ethical breeders, and there's more and more all the time. More and more, the bad pet stores are basically all gone now.
Right.
30 years ago, there was quite a few that weren't very ethical, in my opinion.
Well, you
And
talk
are better now.
what and you talked about the reptile industry and how it has changed over the last 30 years, right?
The
From the
science behind it is
yeah.
way better. And now that the science is there, companies again like Hagen, and there's a couple other companies that create and make things. They got scientists and zoologists helping them improve their products to improve the animal's quality of life.
Right. So there's some actual scientific research in the
Absolutely.
food, and it's not just like, it's like dog food in the sense that you're not just giving them kibble. There's like a nutrient makeup in the
Well,
food that they're
there's
consuming.
a nutritionist behind it
Yeah.
creating this, right? And I don't know, because I don't have dogs, but is there specific species dog food?
Yeah.
So there is kind of that with some reptiles, or the vitamins and the bulbs. If you went to the right pet store, you could go in and there's the specific light bulbs for the desert, for swamps, for jungles. And you can mix and match, but when you can match up your tropical lizard to the tropical light,
Yes. You're
win-win.
giving it the best life. You're giving
Yeah.
the animal its best life, right? It's better
Yeah.
than giving it like, well, so do reptiles, can they be depressed? Can they have like,
Yes.
oh,
Years ago, a good buddy of mine, he had two pairs of smaller lizards. They were different species, but they had the same sort of environment they lived in, and he kept them together. One died. The lizard that was left, it was a dwarf tegu, which you don't really see around anymore. It was depressed, and you could see it in its body language.
whoa.
And he got it a new buddy. It perked up. You could see its body language change because it had another buddy to hang out with. Sadly, that buddy passed away too. But yeah, animals do have feelings, and they're smarter than we give them credit for.
Well,
And
yeah,
anyone who says otherwise, they're only fooling themselves.
because yeah, dogs, like I have a dog. We rescued a dog about a
What
year and a
type?
half ago. Pardon me?
What type?
Oh, that's a great question. Heinz 57. She's like,
There you go.
you,
And you
depending on what angle.
the mixed ones are the healthiest.
Oh yeah, yeah. Her name's Kona, and she is like, animals can make your life better.
But we have to make theirs better.
Exactly. We shouldn't use animals as a therapy tool. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of like, we buy it to make us feel better. It has to be a kind of a two-way street.
Absolutely. They're not going to give back as much, though a lot of dogs, unconditional love to a point, right?
Right.
But we got to provide them what they need. And that goes back to your due diligence, educating yourself before you get into it.
What animal that you own has the most personality, would you say?
It's hard to compare certain things, but parrots definitely have a higher intelligence. Higher intelligence, I'm going to say maybe more personality. One parrot I have, she used to come to work with me all the time. She likes men. And especially at a seniors group, but no matter who I visited, she would literally sit on my hand, scope out the room to see the man that she liked. And when she picked the guy she liked, guess what she'd do?
Fly to him.
She'd wolf whistle at him. And she would literally, in birdie body language, flirt.
Wow.
And that definitely adds to the show. But no matter where I took her, there was always one man that she clicked with. So that was really good at the seniors' homes.
Yeah.
It added to, the show and the excitement. And it was usually kind of like the quiet little guy that would, sit off to the side and not be fully involved like some other people.
Yeah.
So could draw people out of their shells.
That's pretty cool. Now, because this is something that I wanted to talk to you about, but with COVID happening and all the restrictions, and you did a lot of these groups, how are the animals experiencing something? Like, are they kind of getting sick of being home, or what do you see?
In all honesty, there's definitely some that, in my opinion, by reading their body language, they wish they were coming out more.
Right.
And that's going to be the birds and specific mammals, guinea pigs, rabbits, chinchillas, because they were so used to coming out and being pet and hold, and they did like it. And something different to see, right?
Right.
The dog, you can walk around the block. I can't really put a leash on the hedgehog and walk them around the block. You know what I mean?
That would look awesome, though.
I do have the odd leash. They go in the backyard sometimes, but there's always different dangers.
Right.
When COVID was first hitting, it was spring break for me.
Yeah.
And there was some groups, everything got shut down. But when we came time for summer camps, lots of groups wanted me outside because we couldn't be inside. And I was concerned about bringing mammals, because the last thing I need is to pick up a flea or a tick outside in the grass, bring it home to my zoo, and have lots of stuff going on. That could be career ending, bringing something like that into the house.
So
I can't. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just, were you able to do these outside groups?
The main groups was Vancouver City Parks, their community centers. They were really good. They had their rules set. I had to come up with a COVID plan, obviously, but they were really good to me because they had tents and blinders and stuff like that. And if the wind was blowing the wrong direction, we'd move the tent around so it's not hitting me and the animals, because all of a sudden certain things, they feel wind.
Mhm.
It could scare them because wind could relate to a predator.
Right.
That's why some animals have hair, because it's a sensory organ.
Like the hedgehog, for example.
Yeah, and I was thinking more like a scorpion or tarantulas and things like that. Their hairs aren't to make them cuter or keep them warm. It's to sense things moving around them. All of a sudden, they get a big gust of wind hit them. To them, their instincts kick in. That means a predator. They need to flee.
Now, why would so? Because scorpions are in the desert, right? Or
And we have scorpions in BC.
wild scorpions.
Yeah, in the Okanagan, the northern scorpion.
Oh, and rattlesnakes too.
Oh yeah, we have quite a few different. Well, I wouldn't say quite a few, but we have some more exotic-y type of things than a lot of people would think about.
Yeah, I did not know we had scorpions. That's crazy. Where do they go in the
We
winter?
have we have praying mantises that live in BC. One's native that no one's seen in a long time. Two are introduced, and they're prolific. They're everywhere where they were introduced.
Where? Oh, they're in the Okanagan as well.
Yeah.
Well, I heard a story a few years back, and a snow leopard or something like that. Like it was
rare.
obviously, yeah. But well, somebody owned one, and it got out, and it was like running around in the Kootenays or something like that. Did you ever hear that story?
I didn't hear that one, but I've heard, locally, kind of out in Langley, someone I think lost a several, which is an exotic cat from Africa,
Yes.
and to be a pet, they declawed them.
Oh.
And your wild animal escaping, things do happen, right? It can't protect itself or hunt with no claws. So we don't know. I don't think we ever heard whatever happened to that.
Yeah, this is coyotes, right? Probably. They're
Could be a whole
everywhere.
bunch of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coyotes are fascinating animals.
They're very adept at adapting.
Yeah. They're
Very adaptable animal.
yeah. Because yeah, they're just all throughout like America. And then if you kill one, like if you shoot a coyote, they'll do a roll call, and they'll realize that their numbers are down, so they reproduce. So that's
I've
why.
never heard. I can see that.
Yeah.
There are animals do roll calls. Years ago, I was in Costa Rica when they had that great big earthquake, the big one that they had, and the parrots in the trees and the monkeys, they do roll call first thing in the morning and at night. Where are you sleeping? And in the morning, they do roll call to, are you still there?
Yeah.
Because who knows what happens over the night.
And did this roll call, did it really increase after the earthquake? Like, were they checking on each other?
I thought it was kind of funny. Where we were staying, I was the one actually that was teaching the locals when the next aftershocks were coming, because the howler monkeys would start screaming soon before the aftershocks were hitting.
Whoa.
And they didn't realize that. And, the 3 days after that earthquake, I think there was like 1,200 aftershocks. So people were wondering why they're always screaming, and took the Canadian to teach them.
Where did you learn all this stuff? Like, I want to talk a little bit about you for a second. How did you pick all this up?
I haven't gone to school for zoology or anything like that. I have a really big animal library, but I think a lot of this is just observational.
Right.
And I know people that have gone into zoology and they know all the book smarts, but they haven't seen the animal that they study. So they don't know what, in person, what it does. Where I find a lot of the hobbyists, they might not have all the book smarts like the professional, ticketed zoologist, but they know so much more because they've got it in their living room and they could watch it 24 hours a day. Right. They can see how it hunts. They see how it mates and, protects its babies or whatever.
What's the craziest story that you've ever had with, like, in terms of an encounter with one of these animals?
Well, going back to animals are smarter than we give them credit for. One of my all-time favorites was a chinchilla I had named Curious George. He picked me out. When I went to view him in New Westminster, a family was breeding them, and I went to look because I wanted a chinchilla. I'd studied about them. I knew I could take care of them. And the parents and most of the babies were just doing their own thing. They couldn't care less. I was in the room, but George watched me. And I noticed that. So I kept following him back and like going up and down the cage, and he followed me. So he picked me. But years later, and I had George for about 20 years, which is a pretty long time for a chinchilla, and he was a star. He could sense when people were handicapped, slightly different, and he was a huge hit at places like Canuck Place, where other animals might be jumpy in someone's arms or laps. He could sense, and like dogs are like this too.
Mm-hmm.
He could sense when someone didn't have the full abilities as others, and he would just sit there in their arms. So he was a stud.
Wow.
But he got pink eye twice, conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
And it's from parents sending their kids to a birthday party with a highly infectious disease.
Oh.
And the first time George got it, I had to take him to the vet with meds, and the vet visit, it was, $200 or something like that. And I had to give him the meds every day. The first day I had him, I had to literally grab him, hold him super tight as best I could to squirt drops in his eye. Does your daughter want that to happen?
No.
A critter doesn't understand as well as a human, right?
Right.
But that first time I had to fight him to do it. And, I talked to him and say, hey, George, I got to give you your meds. The next day I showed him the bottle, and you know what he did?
Put it in his own eye?
Ran to the front of the cage, and he went,
wow.
Kids don't do that.
Yeah.
He helped me help him get better. That one,
because he knew you were helping him.
He knew that did something that made him feel better. So I never had to grab him and flip him over his side. I just went, hey, George, and he'd run and turn his head.
So
who'd think a rodent would do that?
Yeah, that is, well, and they used to, and this is unfortunate, they used to and still do a lot of experiments on rodents and rats. Yeah. Is that because
and monkeys and dogs and
are they trying to like replicate how a human brain would think or work? Like why are they using those animals instead of, say, a human? I know the reasons are obvious. There's the ethical principles, but are there similarities between how we think and how a rodent thinks?
Probably not, because we don't have to worry 24 hours a day about getting eaten by something.
Right.
And even in captivity, I would think some of that instinct about self-preservation is there. We self-preservation ourselves type, so to speak, if there's a robber in the store with a gun.
Yeah.
We listen and we duck and lay on the ground and do what we're told. A rodent in the wild or in captivity, you know what I mean?
What's interesting about that is that there's a book by, I forget his name, but he's like a primatologist. And the book's called Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Have you heard of that book?
No.
What he's saying is that animals in the wild, they don't have diseases related to stress.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas
anxiety.
Yeah.
Some animals in captivity do, though.
That's so weird. It's almost like when certain needs are being met, certain
aren't needed anymore.
Exactly. So then, and a whole new list of problems take place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's the point of the book, is like to, not to take things so seriously or whatever. And then you won't have all these stress related diseases.
Well, and stress is a killer. And I think 2020 is going to go down as the biggest stress year for every person on the planet.
Right.
Hopefully next year is not going to be the same, but
yeah. Well, it's been very stressful for you, right? In terms of your business, it's been greatly affected.
Massive.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I would typically, as soon as COVID started and everything was getting shut down, that was hitting my peak season, which means I'm able to put like staff bonuses away for Christmas. pay bills, pay taxes, put some money aside for holidays, jump ahead, get some animals. That
Right.
was all boom, gone instantly. And so the first 6 months of COVID, I lost my 6 busiest months of the year. Those months, I should be doing about 80 shows. And the first couple of months that this was happening, I was doing 0.
Mm.
So it's different than another business where you just lock the door and walk away. I can't.
Yeah.
I have things that have to eat, maybe still get sick, go to the doctors, other supplies. My expenses never stopped, but the income did.
Right. So what did you
I'm
find
really
yourself?
glad I got an awesome sister. She's helped me out.
Okay.
I've had some people in the community where I grew up and some others have sponsored a couple animals, which has helped because all that money, I pay staff first, rent, and then animal food, then utilities. Then I worry about me and my debt.
Right.
Priorities, I guess.
Yeah. How many staff do you have working for you?
Normally, I would have, other than like my web guy and an accountant, I'd have 1 full-time staff, my assistant, and maybe 2 part-timers.
Mm.
And now my full-time staff, she's actually had to get another job for obvious reasons because she's got mortgage and bills. And I've had one lady that I've known for a few years. She's offered to help out for shows if it works on her schedule. So I have 1 part-time staff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So speaking of adapting to the whole social distancing, COVID, what adaptations have you made that people can access Mike's Critters?
Well, I'm doing Zoom shows now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the 100% same experience because part of, meeting animals and learning about them is seeing them up close, touching maybe and holding. But you got to do what you got to do. And the next best thing is I can still visit people online.
Right.
And one thing that is kind of neat is I visited other countries with Zoom shows now with families doing it. The very first show I did was a birthday that got canceled. Parents still needed to do something and wanted to do something.
Mm.
But there was people from South Africa and England watching.
Wow.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I had an upcoming show in January online that's out of Northwest Territories. I can't do a road show to the Northwest Territories in a day, right? So it's possibly open up some other doors,
Right.
but it's shut down a lot of the in-person ones.
Yeah. And you seem like a guy who that's where you get your joy is these in-person shows and people being with the animals.
Well, human interaction,
Yeah.
Humans are social beings. And, if I'm working full time, when I'm done work, I want to sit on the couch and be a vegetable and recoup and get ready for the next day. But you kind of don't realize how much you miss people until you're missing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even that high five from Billy's 5th birthday means a lot more now than it did before. Because you usually realize what you missed until it's gone.
And I think that that's a deeper meditation on this whole thing is I think we took a lot of things for granted. I sure did.
Granted. Yeah.
And then now we're here and yes, we adapt. We're very resilient critters.
But it's still hard.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
Right. So what are your hopes? Are you hoping that in 2021 things will go back to normal, or are you optimistic with the whole online thing?
I like the online thing because I have to leave my house.
Yeah.
I've already got my shirt on, nothing below, right? But no, I'm fully dressed. But it opens up some doors. Yeah. And I've got a couple shows coming up in the next 2 weeks out of Toronto.
That's awesome.
And I can reach more people this way, but it's a very, very slow process to do. And it's word of mouth. And what I've always found right from day one, if one show leads to another show, you're never out of work.
Yes.
And word of mouth is the best way to enhance a small business.
Right.
But if you're not good at what you're doing, it's the best way to kill your business too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can people access Mike's Critters? Like say
Well,
there's a birthday coming up.
got to talk to me, obviously, and we got to talk and set dates and times. But I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I got a YouTube channel, and then mikescritters.com is my website, and all the contact info's there.
Okay.
And if it's say it's Billy's birthday party, normally Billy would be my helper and sit with me and hold the things while we're talking. But I kind of think part of the fun is picking the animals that you want to see.
Right.
So still the kids can still pick, or the seniors group or the school group. But when you see what you picked, you spent time with mom or dad online. I like that snake. That revs them up and it gives them energy. And I'm an energy vampire, so to speak. If the group revved up, I get revved up too.
Right. Did you say that you had some critters that you wanted to show?
I do. Yeah.
Well, by all means, let's.
Okay. Well, I picked 4.
Okay.
2 creepy crawly and 2 cute and cuddly.
Oh, wonderful.
What should we see first?
Creepy crawly.
Okay. So when I do schools, and I really like schools because the teachers are on the ball, and they control the kids, because I was the kid, you gave me an inch, I ran for as many miles as I could. So I like that the teachers are in control of that. But classification and adaptation are my favorite ones, because you can do more things. If it's just all reptiles, you're limited. You appeal to more people more often with variety.
Of course.
Variety's the spice of life.
Yes.
So that's why I picked 2 and 2. So here we go. This
That's
is
beautiful.
A creamsicle corn snake.
Creamsicle corn snake.
And this was an adoption I had from a family I know out in South Delta, where I grew up. This is a young girl. She's probably about 2.5 years old. I picked this one because of the colors, but corn snakes are one of the 2 most commonly kept pet snakes in the world.
Right.
So there's lots of info out there. There's lots of knowledge. And on Facebook, just as example, there are a lot of really good groups that if you're new and you ask the right question when you join and you make a posting, you're going to get people that I consider experts giving you feedback.
Right.
And you should do your own research first.
Yes.
So you can narrow your questions down. But this is one of the better snakes, in my opinion, to have. They come in hundreds of different color variations, and they don't get big.
Okay.
So when they don't get big, it means it's easier to clean up its poop, easier to feed, easier to house. And if all those things there, if it's easier, it's better for you and it's better for the animal, because it doesn't need all the high-end stuff that a chameleon might need.
Right.
Though for the right person, chameleons can make awesome pets too, but they're higher maintenance. So any questions about her?
What's her name?
Lucy.
Lucy. Okay. Now
she can't hear because snakes don't have ears. They're deaf, but her name is Lucy. That's what the family called her.
So how do they can't hear? They just use their vision. Do we have any sense of
their number one sense is sense of taste. Snakes are deaf
tongue.
And they have a nose, but they can't smell.
Oh.
So they're missing 40% of nature's senses right away. If you look really closely, you might see the snake has pinkish eyes.
Yes.
There's albinoism in this snake to get this color variation. Certain colors create different colors.
Right.
Just mix paint together. So when you're an albino animal, your eyesight's horrible, just like if you're a person that's albino.
Yes.
So it's not blind, but really say it has 2.5 of its 5 senses are gone. So it senses taste. They have a Jacobson organ in the roof of their mouth. I say it's like a little straw, and then the organ at the back of the straw in the roof of their mouth. So the snake sticks its tongue out picks up chemicals in the air, goes back into the tube, touches the Jacobson organ, transfers the chemicals it picked up to tell the snake what is around it.
Whoa.
And their instincts say, oh, this is food. Go get it, or else I go hungry, or I don't know this. This is danger. Better to be safe than sorry and take off.
Okay. Now, Lucy, does she eat mice?
She does. And actually, she did a show with me on Monday, and she's visiting with you. So after we're done today, I put her back into her cage for a few hours, and she gets dinner.
Okay.
And she'll eat a mouse tonight for dinner.
Yeah. Nice. Well, she earned it.
Her head is?
Yeah. Dislocates her jaw.
Nope, they don't dislocate it. I want to say they stretch it really wide. Tendons, I call them rubber bands. They can stretch really wide to engulf.
Whoa.
A snake can swallow food up to 3 times the size of their head. That's like you trying to swallow a pumpkin. It's impossible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So snakes can swallow big food. And when groups pick animals to come, I've always asked them to pick a certain amount of days in advance. Snakes come to a lot of groups.
Mm-hmm.
I want my animals to be able to eat, digest, and go to the bathroom for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Because I got to clean it up if it goes all over the floor, right? Or I have to smell myself if it lands on me. So for getting my lists, I want 10 days in advance typically,
right,
so a snake can eat and digest properly.
Right. Why are people so like the phobia of snakes and spiders? But why?
And a whole things.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But why are people afraid of snakes, do you think?
Number one, I'm going to say it's a lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
As humans, if we don't know or understand something, what's the first thing we want to do? Kill it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help any phobias.
Right.
But it's funny that you bring that up, because several years ago, I had a psychologist call me up, and she was from India, and she'd said, you know, she's come to the point in her career where she feels she needs to work on some of her own fears.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah. They had cobras in the compound where she lived. And I can understand having those phobias, having that in your yard, right?
Yes.
And I asked her, and she said the majority of people that are afraid of animals, it is lack of education, but it's because who raised you is afraid of them, and you transfer your fears to who you raise.
I see.
So if you were holding, you know, you and your daughter are watching TV, a snake slithers onto the screen, you scream, you just taught your daughter to be afraid because you are.
Right. That's that behavioralism.
Yeah. And culture does play a part of it too.
Of course.
The Western world, I'm going to say, even though I can list massive list of people afraid of snakes and tarantulas, but more people are in exotic countries compared to Canada and the States are afraid of the things more in their own backyard, and they're not educated about them.
Right. And whereas we're more afraid of the symbolism behind, say, a snake based on religion. And
yeah, because typically your average person here, sorry, it's all stuck in my shirt now. The average person isn't going to come across a 20-foot snake or, you know, a mamba in their backyard. So we don't have to worry about it.
Right. Right.
Those people might. And so what's your natural reaction?
Yeah.
Kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that with like gardener snakes. I think those are awesome creatures. And when I was a kid, I'd catch them, but other people, they see them.
On you.
It yes, it did. Yeah. And I thought I was Steve Irwin. That's for protection.
Yeah. That's their defense.
And I think the tail disconnects too, or something like that.
There's lizards that do that.
Lizards do that.
They won't, but there's lizards that can, and some grow them back, some don't.
Oh, they just lose them and that's it. They're tailless.
One-time defense. I call that defense by distraction.
Right. Because
all of a sudden it looks like there's 2 lizards. The real one leaves, runs away, and then the tail set there wiggling because nerves are activated once it detaches. Predators are lazy. They want the easiest amount of food, the quickest way they can do it without wasting energy and time.
Hence why
So
they
you
go for the
eat
weak
something
animals.
or eat what's right in front of you.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's like cougars and how they don't want to risk their own lives to get
No.
something. So they'll look at a weaker animal, track that
Well,
one and get that.
in the wild, most prey animals don't show they're sick or they're injured until there's really nothing left
Yeah.
that they can do, and that's it. Because if they did, they're the first ones targeted in the wild.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, does Lucy like being held? Do you think?
She doesn't mind it.
Yeah.
And you got to watch their body language. And really, I think maybe the most important thing in my business is understanding the people I'm dealing with body language.
Yeah.
If I'm visiting you in person, you're freaking out. I'm not coming to you with the snake because I don't want you to fall backwards, crack your head open, run through a window, scream, and then say bad things. So you got to do that. And if the animal's not comfortable, you can't show it, you can't bring it.
Yeah.
And I've had some critters that I've adopted or got myself over the years that I call my beasts of burden because they don't want to come to work.
Mm.
That's not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, why force it?
Well,
now,
you force it, you're only opening up to other people saying bad things.
Yeah.
As they're seeing the same body language that I am, right?
Right.
And that doesn't help the hobby or the business at all.
Yes. Yeah. It's about, again, the ethics of the business. Now you have another creepy crawly.
I do. So I got a tarantula.
Oh.
It came very early this morning and I'll leave about 4 o'clock today. So this is a Mexican red-legged tarantula. For decades, it was the most sought-after species of tarantula in the world. And I'm reading your body language, aren't I?
Yeah. Well, that's massive. That is a massive
sought-after one because of its colors.
Yeah.
And its temperament. They're very docile. And I like the tarantulas. It does freak a lot of people out. But we talked a little bit earlier about hair. See all the hair on her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a defense for 2 reasons. It's a sensory organ because it senses air movement. And you notice as I talk a lot, is she in front of my mouth?
Yes.
No.
Oh, to the side.
I'm
Yeah. Right.
Out, so she's off to the side so I don't startle her. Because if she fell off my hand and landed on my table, she might not survive a 2-foot drop.
Oh.
They're very delicate animals.
Wow.
But Old World and New World. New World is the Americas. Old World is the other continents. Old World tarantulas, their venom is stronger, but no one's ever died from a tarantula bite. But there's spiders that can kill you with their venom. But New World, because their venom is weaker, another defense they have is their hairs are an irritant. So if I had her right in front of my mouth and I'm blowing on her, she might start kicking hairs off her abdomen. She's trying to push those hairs into my face because you ever had an eyelash in your eye?
Yeah.
How did you react?
Well, you're trying to get it out. And then you're distracted by that. Yeah.
And priority is seeing again, not what you were doing, right?
Right.
So if you can get some of these irritant hairs into a critter's eyes, you can't really catch your food unless you see it. Or you get it in your nose or your mouth, it's an irritant. But their hairs for certain species are really bad irritants, and I'm allergic to some of their hair. And, I'm 6'1", 220 pounds, fairly big guy. If their hair, some of their species get on me, I get hives and welts.
Right.
So what's a smaller animal going to do if I get that reaction?
It'll die.
Well, maybe. I would assume no matter what, it's going to be a way worse reaction.
Yeah. Incapacitated.
Bad reaction.
Yeah.
You have to fix yourself before you can eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what's this tarantula's name?
She doesn't really speak English very well. So I just call her the Mexican red-legged. She was captive born.
Okay.
She's still growing. But when when I do buy my tarantulas, and I did buy her, she was half the size of a grain of rice.
No way.
She was smaller than that when she hatched out of an egg case. So, bulk buying, you can buy things more cheaper when they're young, but then you risk losing them as they grow. The most dangerous time for a tarantula or an arachnid is when they're molting their exoskeleton, because their body's soft. And for a tarantula, they actually flip over onto their back to break out of their exoskeleton. You're totally helpless.
Yeah.
She eats crickets. If there's a cricket in her cage when she's molting, the cricket could end up killing her.
Just by jumping on her?
No, just by biting her while she's trapped out. She's vulnerable to predation.
Vulnerable. Wow.
Very vulnerable. And then they could also get stuck in it. And they need the right humidity. So we're going back to that. When I sense one of my tarantulas is going to grow, I have to make sure there's more humidity in their cage so they can get out of their exoskeleton.
You know what movie made me like snakes, no problem, but tarantulas, it's something
about your body language.
Yeah, it's something about the way they move, like their limbs.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of the movie Aliens and the face huggers.
Some praying mantises definitely look like some aliens from movies.
Yeah. But that is a cool creature. Now, arachnids, they don't have ears, right? But they have 8 eyes.
Well, there's arachnids with 0 eyes.
Okay.
And those ones, there's lots of animals. Well, I don't want to say lots, but there's several types of animals that have 0 eyes. When you live in an environment where you don't need something specific,
you don't have it.
You disappear, and another sense will be heightened. So there's spiders, insects, amphibians, fish that live in caves. You don't need eyes in a dark cave. But then the hairs on your body are more sensitive, or you might have longer reach for touch and feel. Adaptations. Sorry, go.
No. Go ahead.
One thing that I always have to bring up, because 50% of the groups that I visit love this. Women love hearing this. Guys hate this. Massive difference in the tarantula world between girls and boys. Girls are bigger, stronger, and faster. Girls live 4 times longer than their brothers. And a lot of the time, the girls eat their boyfriends. When I'm in a seniors group, I joke, is this a performance issue? I can't with a kid or, at a birthday or a school. But they eat the boys because the boys don't live long. They got one job to do.
Reproduce.
And once that's done, their life energy starts to whittle away. The male wanders off. He gets eaten by someone else. The mom and the family don't get any of those nutrients. So if she eats him, she gets those nutrients. She keeps some, but producing their babies, she passes some of that on. Oh. I call that a power lunch. And this is food for people in parts of the world.
This is what, sorry?
Food. People in certain cultures. Tarantulas.
Yeah. I could never eat that. Really? Well, crabs, like Dungeness crabs, look a lot like spiders.
Well, when you look at them, 8 legs, 2 body, well, 1 body part for a crustacean, I guess, but 2 for an arachnid. You take the hairs off and you give her 2 claws. What does it look like?
Yeah, crab.
Scorpions are arachnids. What do they look like?
Yeah, well, the same thing. Yeah.
Well, they look like lobster.
Yeah.
People eat scorpions. They taste like lobster.
Is that a common ancestor, do you think? Because I'll be honest.
One evolved from the other, I'm betting.
Yeah, because when I look at certain animals, I think there's no way that's not an alien. You know what I mean? Like an octopus.
Yeah. Octopus, one of the smartest, most adaptable animals in the world.
Yeah. Like that thing is from another planet. Squids, all that. Yeah. So is there any animal that you have a phobia of that you're afraid of? I knew you were going to say that. Me too. Me too.
You know that saying, people prefer their dog? I prefer my frog. We're the worst critter on the planet to ourselves and everyone else.
Yeah.
An animal isn't actively looking to do something bad unless you're a mosquito or a leech.
They're doing
what they were
they're
put on Earth.
surviving. Yeah.
Exactly.
Whereas
We're not
humans,
when we do something
we
bad.
exploit like deforestation and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, in the next 30 years,
Massive.
oh yeah. Well, are you seeing like effects of global warming in terms of the animals that you're getting? And
Well, the next one I was thinking about pulling out, I've been told, I've read that they're in danger again. I'm going to bring out a chinchilla next, if that's cool.
Oh, please. Yeah, yeah.
Chinchillas were on the endangered species list because of the fur trade.
Yeah.
Exploitation of people.
Yeah.
By
Which
people.
still goes on, the chinchilla fur
But
trade.
And I'm not a fan of fur. I kind of believe if you weren't born with it, you don't need to wear it. You can go to Costco and buy a winter jacket.
Yeah.
That's not, down-filled, I guess. But the governments where they lived in South America stopped allowing people to catch them. But of course, there's always poachers around, right? But so the populations bounce back because they're rodents. But I've read global warming has really affected their populations in the wild. They live in a cold desert high in the mountains. And if it warms up, these guys can't survive. I don't bring my chinchillas out in the months that get over like 20 degrees outside.
Right.
My animal means more to me alive than it does making a couple bucks off of it.
Yeah. So in the summertime, you have to keep these cool then.
Yeah.
Chinchillas.
So I have to drag my air conditioning unit downstairs in the summertime. If it gets really hot, it'll always have a fan, but if it gets really hot, 30 something, I want the air conditioning unit on. And something else weird about the chinchillas, they live in a habitat with no water. A chinchilla in the wild might never have a drink of water in its life.
So how does it say hydrate?
Get all the liquid from the foods they eat. Quite a few rodents do. So if there's no water to drink, how do you take a bath?
Licking himself.
You need water to drink saliva.
Saliva,
When you don't drink water, you can't produce saliva, you don't pee, and you don't sweat. So they take sand baths. They've adapted to use what's available to them. And there's a lot of rodents that don't need to drink water, but they take sand baths to get clean. And so she rolls around in the sand, gets all in between her fur, takes the greases and oils out.
Wow.
Makes her the softest thing in the world.
Right.
So I got her actually October 29th last year. And like I said, I visit lots of different groups, seniors groups. I had a senior name her. She's the softest thing in the world. So I named her after a product that we all use daily that's known to be soft, but it was really hard to get in the stores for the first few months of lockdown. This is Charmin. Some people don't get that. That's a good name.
That's a good name.
Some people don't get that, but she is the softest thing in the world.
Wow.
And a lot of people.
She is cute. Yeah.
Amazing athletes.
They could jump, right?
One of my older ones jump 4 feet straight up into the air.
That's crazy.
That's like us jumping over a 2-story house.
Yeah. Wow.
And fast, really fast.
And totally calm right now.
She is. And, when I first got her, she wasn't.
Right.
So it takes time and exposure, just like a parrot that can speak. You buy it, you bring it home. It's not going to start speaking. You got to put the time in.
Yeah. Because it's adapting to its new environment.
Exactly. And it has to feel safe, comfortable in where it is and with you before it's going to give back.
The one that I was thinking about was, I love the ears. I love her ears.
I call satellite dishes.
You could just hear for
I don't know about miles, but just hear really good. She's nocturnal. So she's out at night, something that could be sitting, lying in wait, ambush predator. She needs to hear and see. That's why she's got the big black eyes.
Okay. Again, back to those adaptations.
Yep.
They're bigger than I thought. Like,
She's about a year and a half old, and she's actually smaller than the other ones I've ever had.
so if they take sand baths in their natural environment, what does she do in captivity? Like,
I've got a
or in.
pit bull that's in her cage, and
Mhm.
tomorrow is cleaning day for her cage, so I'll replace it. But you can buy a ground up like pumice rock in
Yeah.
sand form, and so I replace that every week almost.
Okay.
2 weeks, but she likes to poop in it, so I do it every.
That is cute.
This is definitely one of the biggest hits, and I know there's a lot of birthday people, especially little girls,
Oh,
that get bummed out if their birthday's in the summer and she can't come.
right.
So now on the flip side, being able to do Zoom shows, she can still visit year round, just not in person.
And are the kids allowed to pet her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, one of my big things though, and my insurance company loves this, I'm adamant about my safety rules.
Yes.
And if you're sitting there picking your nose, chewing on your finger, you're washing.
Yes.
I don't want those goblins on the critters.
Yeah.
And, vice versa. And I have 2 strikes, you're out.
Yeah.
I go through the rules, and it doesn't matter if you're 3 or 100.
Yeah.
You break the rules, that's it for you.
Yeah.
You break them twice. I want to give everyone a chance.
Yeah, of course.
And it's kind of funny because you can never please all the people all the time, right? And I can think of about 4 groups that weren't thrilled with my safety rules about being so adamant about them.
Your delivery, yeah.
Kid,
Yeah.
my animal, and my business. So that's it. I don't care. You're bringing me in. You follow my rules, or that's it.
Yeah.
But I can think of a couple groups that weren't happy about my rules because someone was disappointed.
Yeah.
And
someone's feelings were hurt.
Yeah, you can only say something so many times before that's it. But at the beginning of COVID, in the first month, I actually had 2 of those groups call me, and they go, Mike, I don't know if you remember, blah, 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 you did this, and we weren't happy with your safety rules. You were 20 years ahead of your time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, with the whole touching and the yeah.
Complete.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear, even if it's that much or later, they understand.
Well, that's the education piece, right?
Well, exactly. And, that wasn't a science, but now I guess they kind of proven it is the science now, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, because when I was thinking of chinchillas, the one that actually happens a lot here is mink farms.
Yes. And there are lots of mink farms, and, I'm not a fan of fur, like I said.
Yeah.
You weren't born with it. You don't need it.
Yeah.
I think it's the entertainment industry, movie stars, rock stars that are keeping this going, because lots of people want to be like Beyonce.
Right.
Or J-Lo. Well, she's got a fur coat. I'm going to save my pennies and be like J-Lo.
Yeah.
If they weren't doing that, the fur trade, I think, would drop a lot.
Right.
There is understandable, you're in Northwest Territories, you live in the bush, you're using everything. Here we're not. Most Western cultures, we waste. But yeah, so there's that there.
Well, and you could just use synthetic, fur, right? Because if you're doing it for the cool, like for the cool factor or whatever, you can just get fake fur. It's cheaper too.
Exactly.
And you feel better about yourself.
The mink farms, a few years ago, animal rights activists broke into one of the mink farms in Abbotsford or Chilliwack, and you released like 5,000 of them. You're not helping those animals. No. You just, most of them to death.
Yeah.
Because they're captive born. They don't understand what it's like being outside and you have predators.
Yeah.
I was in that neck of the woods doing shows right after that happened. And we were finding mink run over on the road all over the place.
And they're just easy prey for the coyotes, which is bad for the coyotes because then they think that all their food's going to be that easy.
Well, and eagles, owls, other raptors, and all that. And it's just a chain reaction. But in my opinion, those 5,000 minks that they think they saved, they just sentenced to death.
Yeah.
Some, I'm sure, survived, but most of them didn't.
That's like slacktivism at its finest. Like, we're just going to free them and that's it. Well,
Yeah.
no, there has to be, it's like a then what, right?
Well, exactly. And then if they're all captive born, you release them. What happens if they start mixing with wild mink? What if one has a disease that's inside that's not activated
Right.
until it's outside and gets stressed? Because some stresses are activated by, or disease is activated by stress, right? Then they start intermingling with what the odd wild one,
Mhm.
and you knock out a species.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge problem. We're talking about fisheries before, but river systems in the United States, they've been flooded with this fish from Asia, and they're like,
Tilapia
I don't know if it's tilapia, but
or carp.
they're like flying carp or something, but they like they're killing people because they jump out of the water.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and they like, oh man, but
Yeah.
they're just super invasive, and it's taking all the, I think, endemic species are the ones that were there
Yeah,
originally.
eating
It's
them and taking over, and just like
yeah,
red spider turtles here. The most
the
common turtle that you see is the little, the little
painted
tree-sized
turtles.
red spider.
Yeah.
If you see turtles around the lower mainland, they're all hibernating right now, but odds are it's a red ear slider turtle, and they're from Mexico, and they're actually out competing the western painted turtle.
Oh, yeah.
So, and the rabbits that you're dumping in the park, same thing.
Yeah.
They might outcompete or eat the food of the native one that should be here.
So what do you do about that?
Well, you got to raise awareness somehow.
Yeah.
And
do you
one
kill
person,
them or like, yeah.
everyone has to be on board.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you can't get everybody all on board for the same thing.
Because the way they intersect is, no, you got to free them, you got to kill them, and we can't agree on the outcome.
On
right?
one
Yeah.
commonality.
Now, and you have one last animal, is that right?
I do. Another of the big favorites. Give me 1 second. Sorry, there might be some of its bedding falling off, but what's this?
That's a hedgehog.
It is. African pygmy hedgehog. This was another adoption, and this is a young one. This is Bruce Quillis. And you got to have fun with the names, right?
Of course, of course.
You make people laugh a little bit. You draw them in. You might lower their fear about something.
Mm.
Going back to the snakes, some of them I call Julius Squeezer. You get a laugh. Well, maybe I'll give a little and touch it, and there's the first step, right? Oh, good, he came out.
There's his nose.
Why does the nose poke out first?
He's making sure it's safe.
Exactly. Stay inside your pin cushion ball.
Right.
What's going to bite a ball of spikes?
No animal with a brain, that's for sure.
Exactly. You might attempt the first time, but you're not going to attempt it a second time because you've learned by experience. But I hope you'll do this. Can you hear the sound?
Oh, yeah.
Huffing and puffing. When I'm at a group, I say the huffing and puffing, I call that a burp or a fart because it's funnier. But they vocalize loud to startle their predators.
Oh.
A predator can still eat them, but they have to remove the spikes with claws or talons. You touch them, they go, pff. They scare the thing. I'm going to go and get a sandwich.
Right.
Something else, right?
Bruce Quillis.
And the girl is Harley Quill.
Oh, I like that one.
But yeah, this is one of the more popular ones. And you can see that nose going bonkers. They have horrible eyesight. So one sense works bad, other works better for balance. Because if they all look bad or they all work bad, what happens to you?
You don't know which one to trust. Yeah.
Well, your dinner.
Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, they all work bad. Yeah.
Yeah. They got really good hearing, and they also have a really, really good sense of taste.
Mm.
One thing that's weird about a hedgehog, when they encounter a new taste that they enjoy, and I found this out the hard way. I used to have an albino one. He loved blueberries and blackberries. Have you ever had blueberry or blackberry juice stain clothes or the tips of your fingers picking them?
Yeah.
When they get something that they like, they lick the side. Well, they get it in their mouth and they lick the sides of their body. It's called anointing. It's annoying, not anointing, but it's transferring that scent onto their body. I call that cataloging because now they
Then
know
they
the
can
next
find
time
it.
they encounter it, oh, I want to get it.
Oh, because of their
But
noses.
that's
Yeah.
a good observation. A teacher at a show, a birthday I was doing, he says, could that also be to cover their own scent? If you smell like blueberries, not that they're going to find blueberries in Africa, but if you smell like blueberry and the hyena's hunting you, blueberries not on a hyena's diet. So you might go unnoticed.
Right.
So it might have a couple other reasons too.
Yeah, I like that idea of cataloging because they put it and then I guess they absorb that. And with their noses, because they're so super powered, they
Then
want to find more of what that was, right?
Yeah. And being an albino, having blackberry juice or blueberry juice all over your sides, it doesn't look really good bringing in a critter that's got blueberries all over their sides. So I have to take a scrub brush or like an old toothbrush to them to get rid of it.
But
Which means, well, to get rid of the stain and the chunks of blueberry on them.
Yeah. Is he an albino?
No, this is,
Oh,
I
that the
think
other one.
called a cinnamon. Albinoism means you're lacking your pigments. So you're typically white, or you could be pale pink or yellow, depending on who you are, the animal. Really cute. The worst things about this and the chinchilla is they're nocturnal.
Mm.
So they're typically in the opposite schedule as us. But a hedgehog, their toenails are the hardest animal I've ever had to trim their nails.
Really? Probably because they burrow a lot, right?
Well, I picked him up. What did he do?
Yeah, he just curls into a ball. Right. Yeah.
Take your foot out so I can trim your nails. He's doing it, but it doesn't work like that.
That is crazy how he just goes into a ball.
100% ball, almost perfect protection.
Mm.
If the animal that's trying to eat him isn't afraid of the sounds he makes, you're curled up, you're not getting away your dinner pretty quick.
Yeah.
But who wants to be scared to eat your dinner? You go to stick your fork and your knife in your steak and it moves at you.
Yeah.
You're probably backing off and not eating it, right?
Now with the hedgehog, are those with Bruce Quillis, are they quills or is it fur? Because porcupines are
modified fur.
Modified fur, gotcha.
And porcupines are modified fur too. They're quills, and these are spikes or whatever you want to call it. One of the differences is, and they're both made out of keratin, same thing as our hair and our nails. But the difference is porcupines have a barb at the end of their quill.
Right.
So when it comes into contact with something, it sticks in you.
Yeah.
A lot of people think porcupines and hedgehogs shoot their quills. They don't. You don't want to shoot your protection away.
Then you're vulnerable.
And then you have none. But you come in contact with it, it embeds in you. You go, ow, you pull away and you pull the spikes up. Or it whacks you with its tail, the porcupine does. Porcupine doesn't want to be stuck to the wolf, pulls its tail back, and what hit the wolf is stuck in the wolf.
Okay. And is there poison in the porcupine? No. Okay.
Nope. One thing too in this business, one thing that annoys me the most is poison and venom. So people don't know the difference. And I read it in books all the time.
Mm.
Do you have a guess what the difference might be?
That's a great.
Both different.
So venom, my guess is that, I don't know. Venom I associate with snakes.
Yeah. 20% of snakes are venomous.
Right. Yeah. Now, could they be poisonous as well?
Well, if you ate it, It
Yeah.
could be poisonous. And sorry, my battery's going low. So I'm
Oh,
just
no
going to,
worries.
there we go. Poison and venom could be the exact same chemical compound. It could hurt the body the exact same way, but it's the delivery method. Venom's injected by stingers or a fang.
Right.
Poison's ingested or absorbed. So typically they're both liquid in a way, but it can get confusing because if you ate the head of a rattlesnake,
Right.
you're ingesting its venom.
Right.
So there's always something to throw people off, and there's always a bad example for everything you say in the animal world. There's always something that doesn't match.
Right. Right.
Another big
There's
thing
always.
is there's always something that doesn't fit the category in a way.
Mhm.
How are mammals brought into the world?
Pregnancy.
Most people will say they're all born alive.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So did I. All mammals hatch out of an egg, except 5 lay the eggs outside the mom's body. Every other mammal,
even humans have eggs, right?
yeah. Well, we all can, and I think women, when they're born, they have all the eggs they're going to use for their whole life already in their bodies.
Right.
I think I'm wrong on that, but 5 mammals lay eggs outside the body.
Platypus.
The blue whale, biggest one in the world, hatched out of an egg inside mom.
Whoa.
Yeah. But the 5 mammals that lay eggs outside of the body are the oldest mammal family in the world, and they're the weirdest. Platypus and 4 that look like hedgehogs called echidnas.
Echidnas.
They look like giant hedgehogs, and they're all from Australia.
Yeah.
They're called monotremes, and that's the oldest mammal family in the world.
Wow. Yeah, all those are in Australia. Platypus is in Australia as well.
Yep. And a platypus, the males are venomous. Who would have thought there's a venomous mammal? I think shrews might be too, but male platypus has a spur on its foot, on its back legs that are venomous. That's a defense. They'll kick what's trying to eat them.
Okay. And the difference between venom and poison is that venom is with a stinger. It's like you're being injected by it or something. So fang or stinger.
Compared to ingestion or absorption.
Yes, right. So if you eat a newt or something like that.
If you eat a newt, you're got poison in you.
Yeah.
Do you live on the North Shore?
I live in Surrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the newt in North Van is supposed to be maybe the most poisonous amphibian in BC.
Whoa. Well, I heard a story about there were a bunch of hunters and they were all dead. Like this person came upon this camp, they're all dead. And they're like, what happened? They couldn't figure it out. And they looked in their coffee pot and a newt had climbed into it and then they drank it and they all died. So
I've never heard that, but there are amphibians that can kill you. The poison dart frogs.
Yeah.
The most poisonous dart frog in the world is, the top part of your pinky finger. Its Latin name is Phyllobates terribilis. Terribilis, terrible. Supposedly in the wild ones, they have enough poison on the outside of their body to kill 200 adults. Like that.
And they're that big.
Oh no, they're smaller than that. They're that big.
That's crazy.
And if I've had that species in captivity, but they weren't poisonous at all because they're not ingesting their native food. In the wild, they eat ants that are venomous, and those ants eat poisonous plant.
I see. It's a matter of their food and how much these animals do change when we don't give them the same environment.
And then in captivity, they don't need that poison because nothing's going to be eating them.
Right. Yeah. Again, going back to the adaptations. Well, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, okay, I got to let you go here. But before I do, what's the greatest thing that we can learn from animals? The greatest lesson that you've learned from animals?
They're smarter than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of, not that I have a dog, but if a dog doesn't like a person,
they can sense it.
Person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I can understand people not liking animals because to each their own. I don't like some genres of music or food, right? But I think it's important that kids, especially because they're going to be the future leaders of the world, have exposure to them because it teaches empathy and it teaches about other things, not just about ourselves. And, a little kid that has their own pet, they're learning responsibilities, empathy, and other things.
Right.
And this world needs a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to get out of our level of human egotism, right? And realize that we share this world, like, borders,
They
climate.
might be here before us.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be here after us if we keep going the route we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. One more time, Mike, how can people get a hold of you? Because, you're an awesome guy and I want more people to access
I love hearing that. Well, I'm on Facebook,
Mhm.
Instagram, YouTube channel. My website is mikescritters.com. mikescritters@hotmail.com is my main email.
Mhm.
And 604-598-3649 is the phone number.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for your time and
Thanks for putting up with me.
Oh, hey, you're a great guy to talk with, and I love your animals.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you, and you take care. And I hope that in 2021, these animals can be back to increase people's understanding, not only of the world around them, but of themselves. So
Yeah, no, I like how you put that because we can learn lots if we open up our mind about anything.
yeah, if we stop thinking that we know everything and realize that we can learn a lot from others.
Nobody is an expert at a specific thing. Everybody can learn something from anybody.
Well, I've learned a lot from you today. So,
well, I appreciate hearing that, and happy Festivus.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
Take care and best of luck in 2021.